In Australia, since 2012, in periods of economic strength and downturn, the one constant has been consistent declines in nominal wages. From 3.9% wage growth hit an all-time low in 2020, bottoming at 1.4%, and despite the effect of the pandemic on falling unemployment, this trend has perpetuated for a decade now. In 2017, when the RBA Governor Philip Lowe publicly stated that gaining insight into why low wage growth was such a major priority, they have continued to decline. The wage puzzle that Australia has been experiencing for a considerable time now can, however, be attributed to a variety of factors, two of which being the presence of excess capacity in the labour market and a decline in inflationary expectations.
Within the Australian labour market, there are significant rates of excess capacity still evident. The underemployment rate declined only 0.4% from 2014 to 2019 to 8.1%. The labour force utilisation rate fell just 1.7% to 13.1% in the same period, suggesting that there are many Australians seeking employment or more work that is not available. In comparison to 2008, when annual wage growth was in excess of 4%, there were approximately 469,000 Australians unemployed and 655,000 underemployed, whilst in 2019, there were 673,000 unemployed and 1,093,000 underemployed. It is commonly argued that this is contributing to subdued wages growth, compounded by the IMF concluding that involuntary part-time employment is a key driver in low rates of wage growth. Within labour markets, the inequality between the authority of the employee and employees is distinct, and there are minimal legal and institutional protections provided to workers confronting their employees. Union intervention within workplaces is extremely limited, and as is the Fair Work Commission in being able to resolve disputes without the consent of the employer. As such, to ensure that the power of employees in negotiating enterprise agreements is not excessive, a comprehensive revolution of industrial relations law and practice is necessary. The Australian government and relevant agencies should reach out to those Northern European nations that the OECD has identified as having the most equitable labour market outcomes for guidance, as well as abolish the anti-union laws that adopted over the last 3 decades.
In addition, declining inflationary expectations, as reported by the RBA, is another key contributor to the falling wage Phillips curve. Annual inflation expectations have been below 3% since December of 2012 for both market economists and union officials, and inflation rates were well below the projections between 2010 to 2016. For example, in December of 2018, the annual inflation rate was 1.8%. After a year prior, it was unexpected to be between 2 to 2.2%. The impact that this is having on the subdued wage growth is justified when negotiating employee enterprise agreements and when the Fair Work Commission develops its annual minimum wage determinations, as inflation expectations are heavily accounted for. In addition, increasing the minimum wage by placing greater emphasis on the needs of employee to maintain a reasonable standard of living will stimulate economic growth whilst employment remains stable. Taking into account all of these expenses and needs of employees will increase their spending power and make employment more desirable, thus reducing employment. Raising the minimum wage will grow inflation expectations, and as such, wage growth will be increased. Thank you for listening.